Hello, everybody. My name is the Corporate, and today we're going to be doing a video that is slightly different today. Today, we're going to be doing a review on the newest project that I'm doing right now. It is called Julius Caesar 2026. It is based on it is based on Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Now, I was originally thinking of reading the introduction, as you can see here. However, this is still super early on in this project, in this project, production history right now. So, we're just going to be reading, actually, we're just going to be reading the first two chapters. Chapter 3, titled Augusta, Augusta, and Chapter 4, titled Wildfire. Um, However, before we do that, I'm actually going to be reading the Julius Caesar play, the Wikipedia page on the Julius Caesar play, which of course, I'm not going to be reading the entire Wikipedia page because I am definitely not that crazy. But we're just going to be reading the we're just going to be reading the the top summarization of this Wikipedia article. It's actually kind of it actually kind of comes off as a summarization of the introduction of Julius Caesar 2026, if you actually think about it. So, let's read the Wikipedia article before we begin with the first two chapters. The tragedy of Julius Caesar, often shortened to Julius Caesar, the historical tragedy by William Shakespeare, believed to have been written and performed in 1599. The play portrays political conspiracy that led to the assassination of the Roman dictator Julius Caesar and Rome's subsequent civil war, drawn primarily with deviations in various aspects from Sir Thomas North's 1579 translation of Parallel Lives by Plutarch. Shakespeare presents a dramatized account of Caesar's growing power, his murder by a group of senators led by Cassius and Brutus, and the defeat of the conspirators by the forces of Mark Antony and Octavius at the Battle of Philippi. Although named after Caesar, the play focuses largely on Brutus, whose moral and political dilemmas have led critics to regard him as its tragic hero. Central themes include the tension between personal loyalty and public duty, the use of rhetorics in politics, and the fragility of republican governance in the face of ambition and power. Julius Caesar was among the first plays performed at the Globe Theatre and has remained one of Shakespeare's most frequently staged works. It has been adapted in numerous forms and interpreted in diverse political contexts, reflecting concerns from Elizabethan debates on secession to modern discussions of dictatorship and democracy. The play is widely studied for its exploration of character, persuasion, and political morality, and it continues to influence literature, theater, and political discourse. So yeah, um, now that sorry, didn't mean to navigate over any of the Wikipedia articles. any of the links to the other Wikipedia articles. Sorry about that, but now that we got the Wikipedia page out of the way, we're going to read the two random chapters that I have written. Well, I wouldn't really say like random, quote unquote, but we're just gonna be reading just two chapters in particular, as I stated. Augusta, Augusta, and Wildfire. Um, now let's begin. Chapter 3. Augusta, Augusta. Julia adjusted her pala, her voice dropping to a more conversational level. Actually, just as like actually before we continue any further, for the first two chapters, just as a little bit more context, um we get we get introduced to two Roman aristocrats named Valens and Julia. Um Valens is a senator and he's a statesman in the Roman Senate. They're basically talking about Julius Caesar's role as dictator of Rome, on the day of his triumph, when he returns to Rome from his from the end of the ongoing civil war at this time, um called Caesar's Civil War. Um, after his four other multi-scale triumphs in Africa, Proconsularius, Alexandria, Egypt, Pontus, which is in northern Turkey, I believe along the Black Sea, and Gaul, to celebrate his return the from the Civil War, and his and but also the Gallic War, to celebrate the Gallic War in Gaul in particular. Um, this is the fifth triumph set in Rome. And chapter 3 and chapter 4 essentially continue that just like a few hours before the actual triumph takes place. So yeah, just a little bit of context. But let's continue with the chapter. Julia adjusted her pala, her voice dropping to a more conversational level. He's finally returning from Hispania today, she noted. The city is practically empty because of the triumph they're holding for him. Two of them continued walking through the quiet streets, with most of the population crowded toward the center of Rome to see for precision. Their neighborhood felt unnervingly still. The silence was broken by a voice coming from a few yards away. It was not Latin, and it did not sound like any of the common tongues usually heard around the docks or the markets. It lacked the familiar sound of Greek or Aramaic. Ich bin völlig verloren, the woman said to herself. It was a Germanic dialect, likely from the northern provinces near Gaul or the frontier. To Valens and Julia, the words were completely unintelligible, sounding nothing like the Mediterranean languages they were used to hearing in the city. They slowed their pace, looking towards the young woman who had spoken. Valens and Julia stopped in their tracks. A few paces ahead, a young woman stood alone on a sidewalk, looking up at the towering architecture of the city with the wide eyes of an outsider. She was tall and slender, her thick brownish blonde hair catching the fading light. with a heart-shaped face and a smooth, elegant jawline. She looked strikingly distinct from the Mediterranean faces of the city. Yeah, just before we continue, I just want to make two quick clarifications. One, I don't really know much German right now. I'm actually beginning to learn German in my free time. In my free time, as a matter of fact. However, I don't really know too much German. There's so yeah, I'm really sorry if I butcher any of the German lines in in this chapter. I'm really sorry if I ever mispronounce or butcher any of these words. And to any of my German speaking viewers, you actually know how to pronounce or write some of the or actually like write slash type these lines correctly because I did use Google Translate for these lines. Please be free to comment in the comment section down below how you would correctly pronounce or spell slash write some of these words. And two, um, as if you're wondering, and as if you're wondering why I'm saying lines like Mediterranean languages or Mediterranean tongues and not just Latin, I mean you could research this in your free time, but Rome, while Rome did speak Latin, um, it wasn't truly there. It wasn't truly Rome's official slash national language. Because over time from the people they conquered Rome spoke many languages. In fact, the reason why Rome spoke these other foreign ancient languages is probably the reason why we know these other how we know how we even know how these other languages function. The Romans also spoke Etruscan, which is a mostly lost language now. But they also spoke languages like Phoenician and the Punic language, um, as well as Aramaic and Koine Greek, as well as several other languages, especially in later antiquity in the late Roman era. You might know this, but towards the end of Rome, before the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, um, in the West, in the Western Roman Empire, they still spoke Latin, and in the Eastern Roman Empire, which would have become the Byzantine Empire, they spoke Greek, not Latin. In fact, throughout much of Rome's history, the elites, or the patricians, who are also Valens and Julia, they also were expected to speak Greek. So yeah, just a quick clarification. Both that out of the way, let's continue on with the rest of these two chapters. The woman, named Addie, pondered the local shops. A shadow stretched when then a shadow stretched across the pavement. A legionary emerged from the corner, his presence filling the empty street with the scent of iron and oiled leather. He was a soldier of the new age, one of Caesar's men. He wore heavy, studded leather boots that crunched across against the gravel, and beneath his suit of Valorica, amata, or heavy chainmail was a thick woolen tunic. On his head sat a bronze Montefortino, Montefortino hel- Montefortino helmet. Yeah, I think I butchered that. Sorry. Its red horsehair plumes swaying gently. The soldier also wore a large, thick linen skirt that hung right above his ankles, protected by thick leather straps. Around his waist was a heavy bolteus, a belt decorated with metal studs that jingled like a warning. In his left hand, he gripped a massive scutum. The rectangular shield was a vibrant blood-red canvas of Roman power. At its center sat a heavy iron boss, surrounded by the painted wings of an eagle, the golden lightning bolts of Jupiter, and rafts of laurel. Valens pulled Julia back into the shadow of a doorway, his hands tightening on her arm. The soldier did not look at them, but the weight of the shield and the glint of the chainmail were a silent reminder of what Valens had just said. The Republic was no longer governed by debate, but by the men who carried the red shields. The legionary did not hurry. There was a practiced rhythmic quality to the stride. The iron-studded soles of his caligae clicking sharply against the stone. He adjusted his grip on the heavy scutum. The weight of the large shield shifted easily with his movement. His eyes, visible beneath the bronze rim of his Montefortino helmet, remained fixed on the young woman as he veered toward the sidewalk. Addie remained oblivious for a few heartbeats longer, her attention still caught by the shuttered storefronts and the strange, silent grandeur of the Roman morning. The soldier closed the distance with the quiet efficiency of a man used to marching miles without making a sound. He came to a halt just a few feet from her. Up close, the sheer scale of him was imposing. The thick layers of his chainmail vest caught the light, and the red horsehair crest of his helmet added a few inches to his already tall frame. He simply stood there, a wall of iron and red painted wood, waiting for her to realize she was no longer alone. The air between them grew heavy with the smell of wood smoke and the tang of vinegar wine on his breath. He cleared his throat, the sound rasping and low, then settled his weight onto one hip, his hand resting casually on the top edge of his shield. Once the legionary stood just a few feet away from Abdi, he greeted her. Hello there, young lady. Are you here for the triumph of dictator Caesar? Addie heard the man's voice and turned around, taken by surprise. Hello, Herr Lehonar, she responded. She looked at his gear and asked, Seien Sie zufällig einer von Herrn Caesars Legionaren? The soldier shook his head slightly. No, no, ma'am. I am with a unit stationed here in Italy. My century was ordered alongside several other centuries to ensure order and organization during the triumph later today. The legionary looked at her curiously. What is your name, young lady? Ich bin Adi, she responded. I see, the legionary replied. He paused, noticing her accent. Do you know Latin? Ich kann zwar keinen Latin sprechen, aber ich versierte es. He answered. Wait, she answered, sorry. She answered. Where are you from, then? The legionary asked. Raiatia, added the respondent. The legionary scratched at the edge of his helmet. Where is Raiatia? Exactly. I honestly forgot where that province is located. Addie explained it patiently. Das römische Ratien ist eine Provinz in den zentralen Alpen in Bayern, Österreich und der Zentralschweiz sowie in Norditalien. Im Westen grenzt es an das Land der Helvetia, im Osten an Noricum, im Norden an Ventelicia, im Südwesten an das Transalpen, Gallien und im Süden an Venetia. It Hysteria, eine Region des römischen Italiana. She looked at him as if he recognized the names. Ich komme genauer gesagt aus der Provinzhauptstadt Augusta Vindelicorum. So, you're from Augusta, the legionary said, nodding. Ja, Addie said. And are you here for the triumph? Ja, Adi told the soldier. Ich bin Kunsthandel verküren. Meine Familie besteht aus Kunsthandwerkern und Landwirten. She continued. Ich besuche Rom zusammen mit meiner Familie und den Triumph mitzuleben. She looked down the street, trying to get her bearings. Weißt du, wo das Gasthaus ist? Meine Familie wohnt dort und ich werde mit ihnen vom Venusian aus dem Triumphzug aufbrechen, sobald die Zeremonie beginnt. The legionary paused, mentally charting the streets. It is actually not too far from here. Just head straight for the next 4 blocks, then turn right and keep walking until you find the complex. Addie smiled, looking relieved. Dankeschön. Dankeschön. She adjusted her cloak and added with a spark of excitement. Diktator Caesar hat für seinen Triumphzug unzählig exotische Tiere und Asien und Afrika mitgebracht. Caesar brachte einst eine Tier namens Camelopardalis mit einer Gesupfe von der Größe eines Kamels und dem Aussehen eines Leoparden. The legionary remarked. You are really excited to see these exotic beasts in Caesar's multi-day triumph, aren't you? Ja, Addie replied. Ich bin darin interessiert, diese exotischen Tiere in Städte zu sehen. Selbst Weinen sei in Arenen gehagat oder in Schauka am getötet werden. Oder Weinen sei in einen Zirkus, einen privaten Zoo, einen Aristokraten oder in eine andere Gladiatorenarena irgendwo im Land transportiert werden. Es ist wirklich interessant, solch exotischen Kreaturen aus Afrika und dem indischen Subkontinent zu it. The soldier chuckled, shifted his shield, and replied, "That is pretty smart of you, lady. You certainly know your beast." He gestured down the road. "Remember, 4 blocks down, turn right, and you will get to that hotel." He smiled kindly at her. "Have a nice day, and I hope you enjoy the triumph." As Addie prepared to walk off, she paused, giving him a polite nod. "Valin, danke für Ihre Freundlichkeit." She turned and began making her way toward the Venusian, her boots clicking the pavement. The legionary watched her for a moment before calling out, "You too, madam. You too." He then adjusted his helmet and continued his lonely patrol through the quiet streets of the capital. Chapter 4. Wildfire. The rhythmic clicking of Addie's boots eventually merged with the distant low hum of the city center, leaving the streets in a heavy, artificial silence once more. Clack, clack, clack. For a long moment, Valens and Julia remained tucked into the alcove of a shuttered granary, the shadows stretching above them like a dark shroud. The air was stale, smelling of damp stone and the lingering tang of the soldier's vinegar wine. "She's an optimist," Julia finally whispered, her voice barely a ripple in the stillness. She adjusted the heavy silk of her palla, the deep Tyrian purple looking almost black in the shade. To travel all the way from the edge of the world just to see a parade of dying foreign beasts from the far edges of Africa and Asia, along with some stolen gold? Does she really think the dust of Rome tastes better than the air of the Alps? Valens did not answer immediately. He peered around the edge of the stone archway, his eyes tracking the red crest of the legionary's helmet. "It isn't about the dust, Julia," he said. "It's a ritual of ownership. Caesar is not merely showing the plebes some lions, he is showing them that the world has been shrunk down small enough to fit inside the city walls. He wants every person in Rome to feel as if the gods themselves have moved into his house, and yet you're the one acting small." She countered, her eyes flicking to the white-knuckled grip he had on the hem of his toga, hiding in doorways like a thief from a single patrolman. "You are a citizen of the first rank, Valens. Act like the Republic has not died quite yet." Valens let out a sharp, bitter breath. Caution is not cowardice. In a city full of Caesar's ears, a man in a senator's toga, walking through a deserted district, looks like a man searching for a secret meeting. And meetings lead to the Mamertine prison. "Let's just move," Julia sighed, stepping out onto the pavement. "The sooner we are back in the light of the Forum, the less likely you are to jump at your own shadow." They began to walk, their footsteps sounded far too loud in the empty corridor of the street. They spoke in a hushed tone about the logistics of the day, the triumphs, the rumors of gold-plated chariots, and the thousands of prisoners being led to their deaths. But they had barely covered 20 paces when the air behind them shifted. The rhythmic stride of the soldier had stopped. There was a heartbeat of silence. Then came a sharp, metallic thud as the iron boss of a shield struck the smooth cobblestone pavement. "Halt, citizen!" The voice was a jagged rasp, completely strided of the helpfulness it had offered the provincial girl. It was the voice of a man who had helped the power of life. No, wait, sorry. It was the voice of a man who held the very power of life and death on the edge of a blade. Valens and Julia froze. They turned slowly, keeping their hands visible. The legionary was standing 20 feet away, but he had already closed half the distance before they had already turned around. This time, he did not approach with a casual swagger. He moved with cold, predatory focus. As he stopped, he raised his scutum firmly. It was not a defensive posture. He was not crouching or hiding his chin behind the rim. Instead, it was a secure, dominant stance. The heavy, rectangular shield was held high and centered a wall of blood-red wood, an iron block in their path. His hands gripped the internal handle tightly, his knuckles white. The streets are cleared for the precision by the order of the dictator, the soldier said, his eyes narrowed beneath the bronze rim of his helmet. He did not look at their faces first. He looked at their hands, then their clothes, then back at their hands. Why are you two lingering in the shadows of a vacant district? This is not the path to the viewing stands. Valens cleared his throat, trying to summon the gravelly authority of his father. We are simply returning to our estate, officer. We chose the side streets to avoid the crush of the crowds near the Villa Bruum. Surely, as a man of discipline, you understand the value of a clear path. The soldier's lips curled. He stepped closer. The smell of oiled leather and iron grit radiated off him. The lorica hamata on his chest jingled slowly with every breath. I understand that the shadows are where the rats gather, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low pitch. A man wearing a toga of this quality in this neighborhood at this hour, it looks like a recruitment drive to me. A recruitment drive? Julia asked, her voice dripping with artificial confusion. For what? We have plenty of servants at home. The legionary shifted, his shield an inch higher, the iron boss glinted. Do not play the fool, lady. I have seen your kind before. The old Romans, the ones who whisper about liberty while the dictator is out bleeding for the borders. Are you hiring a street gang? Looking to pay some Sabura thugs to throw stones at the chariot? Maybe disrupt the order of the day with a few well-placed fires? That is an absurd and treasonous accusation. Valens snapped, his face reddening. I am a citizen of Standig. My family has served in the Senate for 3 generations. The Senate, the soldier spat, as if the word were a piece of rotten meat. The Senate is a room full of ghosts and men who had not felt the weight of a pilum in 20 years. Caesar is Rome, and anyone who is not for Caesar is rot in the grain supply. He moved even closer, his scutum now a mere foot from Valens's chest. The soldier was tall, but the way he carried himself, the rigid pro-Caesarian zealotry burning in his eyes, made him seem like something larger, not just a man, a wall, a warning, a piece of Caesar's will given armor and breath. Maybe I should take you both to the barracks for a formal inquiry, he said. We can see how well your family name stands up under a centurion's questioning. We have been told to look for conspirators. You look like the type who thinks he is too important for the new law. Julius saw the way Valence's jaw was working. He was about to say something foolish, something proud, something that would get them arrested, or worse. She stepped in front of her brother, her movements slow and deliberate. She did not look offended. She looked like a woman dealing with a minor annoyance, like spilled wine or an improperly folded garment. Legionary, she said smoothly, reaching into the silken pouch at her waist. You are clearly a man of great discipline, a true pillar of the dictator's vision. My brother is a man of many words, but as you can see, he is quite harmless. He simply misses the sound of his own voice. Valens turned, his eyes sharply toward her. Julia ignored him. She pulled out several silver coins, the metal flashing brilliantly in the morning sun. She held them out on her open palm, right near the top edge of his shield. The denarius had been the standard Roman coin since its introduction during the Second Punic War in 212 BCE, remaining in use into the imperial age. These coins were usually small, usually pieces of high value silver, often light to medium gray in color, and typically measured between 18 and 21 millimeters in diameter. Some bore the face of Roma on the obverse, the goddess who personified the city and the Roman nation, often shown wearing an Etrusco Corinthian helmet. On the reverse, some carried images of the Dioscuri charging on horseback, while others showed divine or military imagery meant to remind every hand that touched them of Rome's power. The coins in Julia's palm flashed like captured sunlight. It is a long walk to the barracks, Julia continued, her voice like velvet. And the sun is growing hot. Surely a man of your dedication has more important things to do, such as ensuring the main thoroughfare is clear for the great one's arrival, than escorting two bored aristocrats through the dust. She lifted her hand slightly. Take this for your diligence. Consider it a contribution to the welfare of the men who keep us safe. The soldier's gaze moved from Julia's face to the silver. The hard financial glint in his face did not vanish, but it was joined by a flash of basic greed. He looked up the street, then down, making sure the silence remained unbroken. The movement so fast it was almost a blur. His hand shot out from behind the shield, and snatched the denarii with a sharp metallic clink. He stepped back, lowering the scutum just enough to let them pass, though he kept his body squared toward them. Move along, he grunted, his voice still harsh, but no longer borderline reaching for his sword. And stay out of the dark. The republic of your fathers is gone, Senator. Try not to get buried with it. Valens and Julia did not wait for a second invitation. They walked past him, with their heads held high and their strides long and purposeful. They did not turn. Running was for the guilty, but they moved with a frantic sort of dignity, the kind of dignity that tried very hard not to look like fear. As they moved away, they could still hear the soldier behind them. He was not marching, he was standing still, and the silence of the streets magnified every sound. Look at this, the soldier remarked to himself, his voice carrying a tone of genuine, wide-eyed awe. One side, a fine Barbary lion, strong as a mountain, and the other, there was a pause. Then came the faint sound of a thumb rubbing over silver, the face of dictator Caesar himself, with his name embedded at the bottom in coin Greek. Look at that brow. Look at that jaw. Way to go, great one. Way to go. Julia and Valens were 3 yards away, nearing the end of the block. Julia's face had set into a mask of pure, cold disdain. Her nostrils flared with every breath, and her eyes remained fixed on the horizon, as if she were trying to scrub the memory of the soldier from her mind. Valens looked even worse. His face was pale, his lips curled in a sneer that was half fear and half fury. Did you hear him? Valens hissed, not looking back. The way he spoke of him, like a god walking the earth. He did not even care about the silver until he saw whose face was on it. He is most certainly very supportive of Caesar. Julia replied, her voice tight and trembling with deep, quiet anger. Supportive? Valens repeated. Fanatical, she corrected coldly. He did not see a bribe. Valens, he saw a relic. He is not a soldier of Rome anymore. He is a discipline of a man. It is a sickness. Valens whispered, with disdain on his face, deepening as they turned the corner, leaving the soldier and his blood-red shield behind in the quiet, dying shadows of the old city. A beautiful, silver-plated sickness. Valens watched the soldier from the corner of his eyes, and for a moment longer, then turned to Julia, his eyes dark with a mixture of fear and fury. It is unsettling, he muttered, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of the city. That a man like him, a Roman, respects and nearly worships a mortal like Caesar more than he does the pantheon of Rome. There is a reason the goddess Roma represents the city and the republic. She is eternal. Caesar is merely flesh. He looked back towards the intersection where the coin had changed hands. Roman tradition never allowed a living man to strike his own image upon a coin. It was the ultimate taboo. A man of kings, to see a common soldier marveling at a man's face as if it were a holy relic. Valens stopped. His jaw tightened as he looked up at the towering, silent marble of the surrounding buildings. The weight of the new world seemed to press down on his shoulders. The city around him no longer felt like the realm of his fathers. It felt occupied by a single name, Caesar, in the streets, on the banners, in the mouths of soldiers, on silver, in worship. Julia said nothing. For once, she did not interrupt him. She only watched her brother carefully, as if she could feel the shape of the thought forming inside him before he spoke it aloud. Valens's eyes hardened. Someone must put an end to this reign of tyranny, he stated, his voice trembling with a dangerous, cold conviction. He looked towards the distant roar of the soon-to-be triumphal crowds, once and for all. So, yeah, this is, this is all I'm going to read for now. But, although I did give some brief commentary while I was, like, just brief, notes to remember, right, just a few clarifications in chapter 3, I decided to save the rest of the commentary for the for the last of the for the for the end of the video. Um, so in a nutshell, not in a nutshell. If you, I'm not sure if you could have told or I'm not sure if you could have sorry. I'm not sure if you could have recognized already, but the the uniform slash armor of the Roman legionary that talked to Addie. It wasn't it wasn't really like the iconic Augustian legionary outfit you would see in like shows and movies and documentaries and historical reenactments, etc. Um, you see, Rome, over its thousand years of history, over its 1,000 years of history, Rome, of course, um, I'm not sure if you knew already, but for those who didn't know, Rome, the armor and uniform of Roman troops varied widely and heavily. From simple militiamen and clan warriors in the start of the Roman kingdom, all the way up till the up till the famous Augustan legionaries, to a more mix of Greek hoplite and early medieval military gear towards the end of Rome's history. Um, Rome's armors, Rome's arm, the troops of Roman armor changed heavily. So, how should I say this? You see, during Julius Caesar's time, the legionaries weren't quite like the Pax Romanum. Technically, sort of after Pax Romanum. It wasn't really the famous Pax Romanum legionary outfit. Well, technically, it was used like after Pax Romana, but oh well. The legionary outfit you just heard me describe, that was the Marian reforms legionaries in the late Republic, before Octavius slash Augustus Caesar became Rome's first ever emperor. Um, the Marian reforms were proposed and implemented to replace the manipular system and to create a much more standardized army. Although Rome still used auxiliaries, mercenary groups, and volunteer groups slash militiamen. Of course, the post-Marian reform slash pre-Augustan legionaries, they did evolve throughout the late Republican era of Rome before Augustus took power as emperor. So that's why it's a little bit more different. Yeah, I'll leave this really cool video from the Armchair Historian. He's a really cool animated YouTube historian. I'll leave his video down in the comments in the description. But yeah, um, I think that's about it. That's all I just had to say. Um, but yeah. Wait, actually, quick thing. Um, so, the triumphs. Julius Caesar, after the Battle of Mundia, at the end of the Caesarian civil war, Caesar led four triumphs to across the the Republic. He uh he went to Africanus Proconsularis, Alexandria in Ptolemaic Egypt. This was still before Roman occupation, and Pontus, which is a Hellenistic kingdom in northern Turkey in along the Black Sea. So yeah, he also held one in Gaul, not only to celebrate the end of the Civil War, but to also celebrate his triumphant return from the Gallic Wars, like, which ended like 4 years prior, because like when the Senate recalled Caesar to from Gaul to hold his to like end his like administrative slash political slash colonial um building in the region, it led to the crossing of the Rubicon and the start of the Civil War. So I guess he didn't really get the chance to celebrate his return. But yeah, I don't think yeah, I think he did held a fifth. He actually did held a fifth triumph a little bit later in the. No, I actually think this one came I think he actually held a fifth triumph, which came before all the rest in 46 BCE, when he was still in Spain, sweeping up sweeping up against insurgent Pompeian loyalists at the end of the war. So I think this was in June or July, June to August, maybe September. So like this June to August and maybe September, right before he returned to Rome. I don't think he ever did held a triumph in Rome, but yeah, yeah, he. I don't think he did, but in the original Shakespearean play, he sort of did. Now, this is the last thing before we end this video off for today. Um, well, this definitely isn't a one-to-one remake to Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. Not at all. What I mean is that think of this as like an original remake, or like kind of like a neo director's cut, kind of like the Indiana Jones novels I've done right now. That's about all the commentary I can say for now. I might give a few more pieces of commentary and when I get to do the audiobooks, but that's about it for now. Also, don't worry. The next part of Indiana Jones and the Zealandian Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it's gonna come out next weekend. Yeah. This weekend I was planning to do that, but I wasn't really ready to record, so I did that Garfield shit post and this this preview slash this preview of of the Julius Caesar remake I'm doing. So yeah, that concludes our video. If you haven't done so, please don't forget to smash that like button right now. It really helps a lot. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And please, if you haven't already, please turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. And if you were to watch, I'm not forcing you, but if you were to watch videos like this one on the channel, free at free times, you could boost the algorithm. You can boost the algorithm, and you can boost the algorithm poll of the channel. Yeah. But and and if you're and if you want, you can share this to your friends, family, and the whole world. Let them know about the next greatest project. Um, the next greatest project that I am doing right now since Golden Crown of the Omega. I'm not forcing you to do any of it. I think Sharon is probably like the most optional part of all the stuff I mentioned. Though that's not to say like the rest of it was optional because it was. However, I am heavily suggesting that if you haven't subscribed, in a nutshell, please subscribe, like, turn on the notification bells, and yeah, that's all it means in a nutshell. Subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell if you hadn't done so already. That's about it in summary. I hope everyone has a good Sunday, and I hope everyone had a good weekend. And I'll see you all in the next video. Until next time, we meet again.